Tonight on CFTK-TV, a possible ratification for the Kitsilus Treaty, a helicopter crash in New York leaves 6 people dead, and what federal leaders think about the election polls.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, I'm Damien Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. In a historic vote for the Kitsilus people, the outcome is yes, according to voters on the ratification of the Kitsilus Treaty and Self-Government Constitution. Christine Boyle, who is the Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, said that 95% of the voters supported the treaty and Constitution, 85% voted yes on the treaty, and 81% voted yes on the Constitution. For the treaty and Constitution to be ratified, each vote required a double majority. That meant that more than 50% of eligible voters on the voters list needed to cast a ballot, and more than 50% of those voters needed to cast a ballot in favor of the treaty and Constitution. These thresholds ended up being met. And the next step is for British Columbia to ratify the treaty, then for all parties to sign, then Canada will eventually ratify. Provincial and federal ratification involves the BC legislature and Canadian Parliament, each passing treaty implementation legislation. Boyle says that the Kitsilus Treaty is a path to self-governance, recognition of rights, collaborative resource management, and new economic opportunity. Now, the Thornhill Fire Department is warning the public of a recent uptick in grass fires due to potential dry conditions. Here's Jaylene Matthews of CFTK-TV with more.
The Thornhill Fire Department is warning residents of the dry conditions in the area after dealing with an uptick in grass fires recently.
Just what we've been seeing lately is the dry conditions that are coming earlier on in the year, right? So typically around that May long weekend is where we start kind of outfitting, being ready for that wildfire season. And now having already 2 grass fires in at the beginning of April, it is definitely changing out there. The fine fuels that are sitting on the ground, they're just way more receptive to that fire and ignition point right off the get-go. So it's definitely important to keep that in the back of your mind. And everybody's out doing their spring cleaning in their backyard. Be fire aware, be ready, have your protections in play, have that hose out, a bucket of sand. The 2 grass fires that we have had, they were both wind driven. They moved at a rapid pace and getting out of the hand for any individual to be able to hold. So fire department were called for both, and unfortunately we were really good to get there as quick as we possibly could and got those out and left them at a small size. So.
Captain Daw says the fires were human-caused and recommends using safer ways to clean up your property.
Easiest way to avoid it is go back to utilizing tools, your weed whackers, just your lawnmower in general. Instead of trying to burn the grass and the leaves and everything from the fall, go back to utilizing tools. I know it's a little more work at the end of the day, but it is the safer route for sure.
For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
And the Terrace RCMP have released a report about a man who pointed a firearm at another person while threatening to kill them. Just 2 days ago on Wednesday evening at around 8 p.m. at the 5200 block of Hallowell Avenue, the man pointed his firearm, directed the threats, and then returned inside of his home. At the time, the man was the only person inside and would not cooperate with police callouts, and his behavior eventually escalated while he was being armed and barricaded. On Thursday morning at 3:30 a.m., the man was then taken into custody after suffering a bite from PDS. He was then arrested for uttering threats, pointing a firearm, and was taken to the hospital to receive medical attention. And in big news yesterday over in New York City, a very unfortunate event occurred where a helicopter that was carrying tourists ended up crashing into the Hudson River. Joy Malbin has more just south of the border.
This is the terrifying moment the helicopter plunged into the frigid cold Hudson River in New York City.
We have multiple boats still in the water conducting searches for any additional occupants of the aircraft.
Witnesses say it was clear the helicopter was in trouble.
It sounded like a sonic boom on my right. So I look up and literally I just see a helicopter splitting in two with the rotor flying off in the sky. It was going so fast and just went straight into the water.
Others could see the pieces of the rotor blades breaking apart.
So there's 2 propeller did that spin. One separate. I think one broke into pieces, and the rest, well, the rest of the storage fell. So I don't know what happened.
I saw the helicopter. It was just coming down in that 45 angle, and it went straight into the water. It was a big splash. It was crazy.
Fire and rescue boats racing to the scene, searching frantically for survivors. The helicopter turned upside down in the water. Officials confirming the worst.
According to the manifest, aboard the helicopter were 6 people. 1 pilot, 2 adults, and 3 children.
The mayor says they were tourists of family from Spain on a sightseeing helicopter, a common sight over Manhattan. It had been flying for about 15 minutes over the city before it broke apart and crashed.
Our hearts go out to the family of those who were on board. It's almost reminiscence of the plane going down here on the Hudson River.
The so-called miracle on the Hudson in 2009, pilot Sully Sullenberger became a household name, gliding his plane to safety. All 155 people on board survived. This time, first responders did everything they could
to try to save these victims, and you can see the trauma in their face. They did everything they can.
There have been calls to regulate these tourist flights that has become too congested over the city. The National Transportation Safety Board is investigating.
While Canadians are seeing an increase in value on the Canadian dollar, billions of dollars may be lost due to restrictions of the transportation of goods across provincial borders. Shaylin Sulsky has more from Alberta.
It's extremely frustrating, and it's like, why are we doing this at this point?
This Alberta food producer has operated in the province for 10 years and sold in BC for nearly 2, until recently.
We got a notice about a month ago to that we need to cease selling to BC.
The notice notified the company of additional licensing required to sell meat across provincial borders. As a result, Chris Leroy's business is losing $10,000 to $20,000 every month.
We've made millions of pies in Alberta and sold, and people have ate them. Never once had an issue with anybody getting sick, but as soon as our pies cross or dumplings cross into BC, all of a sudden they're not safe.
It's incredibly common, and it's not just trying to get into new markets, but even sometimes getting products from other markets to bring here.
The CEO of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce says the situation highlights the structural challenges facing interprovincial trade. Challenges, he says, are costing Canada about $200 billion a year.
We all think that the rules we've created are the only way to do things. And it's not about the rules, it's about the economy and keeping people safe.
Alberta's premier shared that message at an event in Ottawa.
That means breaking down interprovincial trade barriers that have hampered our economy for decades and killed countless jobs and opportunities.
Speaking at a Conservative conference, Smith blamed the federal Liberals and NDP for blocking energy projects that she said would have made Canada less reliant on the United States.
Canada cannot afford to be weak, not now and not ever. It is time for us to grow up and start acting like a strong, independent, and sovereign nation.
Words that offer little help to this entrepreneur.
What we thought was opening the door on some level of interprovincial trade, and then having that close on us.
Leroy hopes to reopen that door soon, but says questions regarding how his company can obtain licensing are going unanswered. Shaylin Skulski, CTV News, Edmonton.
Coming up next, the province prepares for a surge of Canadians to visit this summer in British Columbia. Welcome back to CFTK-TV. Well, BC tourism will look to seize the moment this summer, with many different areas expecting to have the province to be a hot spot for tourists from around the country. Craig Krause has the story down in Vancouver.
Whether it's on the island, the Okanagan, the Kootenays, or up north, BC has plenty to offer. And with summer inching closer, there could be a wave of tourists staying north of the border.
It'll be BC, but just probably to the Okanagan.
Going to Whistler. I heard there's a beach party there.
Local travel plans, something communities and attractions are preparing for.
We see our booking pace a bit ahead of last year, and last year was a good summer.
I'm really expecting it to be really busy this year. You know, we appreciate that.
BC hotels, short-term rentals, and campgrounds already filling up. And for campers, finding that last available spot has become a bit easier.
Select the trail.
Vancouver-based app CampNap is monitoring cancellations.
They'll open up that availability on their website, and that alerts your app.
Yeah, so what'll happen is when someone cancels, then the status of the campsite changes from unavailable to available.
And this year, with growing demand, the race is on.
I would get on it right now, yes.
And to maintain the health of tourism in the province, Destination BC announced it's investing.
It's nearly $4.2 million in continued cooperative marketing funding that supports over 150 communities and really 13 provincial tourism sectors.
Destination BC is also reporting a year-over-year spike in Americans vacationing in the province this summer. No surprise for many Canadians.
Canada has a lot to offer, so we're okay. We're okay.
Craig Crow, C2 News, Vancouver.
And now we'll take a look at your local weather forecast for tonight and for the week ahead. Tonight on the north coast, it should have mainly cloudy conditions with a 40% chance of showers with a low of +4. For this upcoming week, tomorrow could be a sunny day with a slight chance of showers, but then there will be a couple of days of rain starting on Sunday, then cloudier conditions starting on Tuesday. The high will be 9 degrees on Monday and Wednesday, while the low will be 3 degrees on Tuesday night. Terrace and Kitimat tonight will have similar conditions, but with a 70% chance of showers along with a low of +2. This week should see some sun tomorrow and on Tuesday with periods of rain in between. There is a chance of flurries on Monday evening as well. The high will be 10 degrees on Wednesday, which can change from now, of course, with the low being -3 on Monday night. Tonight in the Bulkley Valley, should it be partially cloudy with a 30% chance of showers in the evening, with winds from the southwest at 20 kilometers per hour, increasing to 40 at times. The low should be -8 with a wind chill of -11. For this week, it should be mostly sunny except for showers on Sunday and Monday. The high will be 12 degrees on Wednesday, and the low will be -4 on Monday evening. Now we take a look at your roadside report from around the Northwest. For additional updates, check out drybc.ca. Highway 16, there is bridge maintenance on Haida Gwaii, utility work at Rainbow Lake, utility work west of Terrace, and road sweeping east of Burns Lake. Highway 37 has water pooling from Kitimat to Terrace and frost heaves from Kitwanga to the Yukon border. Highway 37A has falling rocks. The Nishka Highway has water pooling, and Telegraph Creek Road has muddy sections. And these were what the cameras were looking like from around the Northwest. Still to come, what political parties think of the election polls and what they will do to manage crime. Hello again. Well, crowd sizes have been a topic of conversation in this campaign, and one small group made a statement at Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's recent rally. Poilievre has lost his 20-point lead over the Liberals, so Rachel Aiello and CTV News obtained answers from all the leaders on their trust in the Canadian ballots.
Do you believe the polls? That's what it said on signs and sweaters some Conservative supporters were sporting at Pierre Poilievre's rally last night. Today, the Conservative Party sought to distance itself from the group questioning whether national polls are painting a true picture of this election. Do you believe the polls, and can you commit today that you will respect the results of the election no matter the outcome?
Yes, and that decision will be based on whether, after a lost Liberal decade of rising crime and costs and a falling economy under America's thumb, we can afford a fourth Liberal term, or whether we want change.
Seeking clarity on whether that yes was to both questions, reporters tried to follow up. Poilievre was not the only one to be asked today about trusting the polls and the integrity of the vote.
Of course. Okay. This is Canada.
This is Canada. I know there's certain parties that just import all their slogans and their policies from America, but let's not import that nonsense into Canada.
Jagmeet Singh said while he has doubts that the NDP's support is being captured in the national numbers, he'll respect the election outcome.
We're New Democrats. Democracy is in our name, so of course we'd accept it.
With 18 days left to lock in votes and an additional seat up for grabs in Canada's most populous province, thanks to redistribution, both Poilievre and Carney continued their campaigning in Ontario. And Singh will be back on the hustings in this province in the coming days.
Ahead of tonight's rally, I didn't spot any of those same poll-questioning supporters. This, as Conservative sources were quick to say today, that the only poll that really matters is the one on Election Day.
In terms of how parties will look to keep Canadian citizens safe, Abigail Beeman has the details on both the Liberal and the Conservative Party in relation to gun laws and Poilievre's new 3-strike policy.
All the way. Those are fingerprints. Oh man. And you could actually just...
Mark Carney wants to present his plan to tackle crime as results-oriented, but a key tenet, the gun buyback program, was a lightning rod for its beleaguered and slow rollout under the Trudeau Liberals.
You track progress on a monthly basis, and you hold people to account. And we should be held to account for putting this into action, but it's there for a reason. We are committed to this.
Other highlights from the large policy announcement include immediately revoking gun licenses for those convicted of violent crimes, tougher bail and sentencing for certain crimes like repeat or violent car theft, and hiring 1,000 new RCMP officers and training 1,000 more border officers. Meanwhile, the Conservatives launched their public safety plan earlier this week.
A lost Liberal decade of soft-on-crime, hug-a-thug policies has made life more dangerous.
The main plank is the 3 strikes you're out rule, Pierre Poilievre promising mandatory minimum 10-year sentences for anyone convicted of 3 serious crimes. And he had the backing of the Police Association at his rally in Brampton, Ontario, a city grappling with high crime, where Carney also made his announcement.
He will put victims before criminals. He will put families before politics, and he will put safety before ideology.
The Liberal plan is much more concrete.
Benjamin Perrin was a legal advisor in the Prime Minister's office under Stephen Harper, but takes issues with Poilievre's plan.
It's more of the same tough on crime, mandatory minimum penalties that tend to get struck down by the Supreme Court, and research shows doesn't actually deter crime. Importing these failed U.S. policies like 3 strikes that don't work.
And shifting away from the campaign trail once again, Carney heads back to Ottawa to hold a meeting on tariffs as Prime Minister with the U.S.-Canada Cabinet Committee Friday. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Toronto.
And now we take a look at the stock market, where we once again have a big jump in the Canadian dollar. The Canadian dollar is up over 0.6 cents. The price of gold is up at $67. Oil is up $1.43. Natural gas is down 3 cents, and aluminum is up $60. In Toronto, the TSX is up about 573 points. The Venture Index is up at 23. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 613, and NASDAQ is up 337. Still ahead, how the set of The Last of Us made its way to British Columbia. Welcome back to our final segment. For the first time in a little while, tariffs don't seem to be dominating the headlines like they usually do. We do have a few updates, however, as we are entering another cycle of a pause on the tariffs. Judy Trin from CTV has more over in Ottawa.
One by one, the ministers of the Canada-U.S. Cabinet Council arrived to meet, but only the Prime Minister would speak.
A lot of developments in terms of U.S. tariff policy.
But there wasn't much to update about what Canada is doing. The country still faces U.S. tariffs on steel, aluminum, and autos, and has already announced retaliatory actions. Nothing changed for Canada when Donald Trump paused global reciprocal tariffs earlier this week. The real negotiations begin after the election.
We left instructions for officials to ensure that the next government, whichever government Canadians choose, will be in the best possible position for negotiations with the United States, which, as the President and I have agreed, will begin from the start of May.
Carney did not take questions. Around the same time, production at the GM plant in Ingersoll was being halted. About 500 people were laid off. Pierre Poilievre posted on social media as soon as the news broke. He said he was incredibly saddened and that a Conservative government would push hard to put an end to these tariffs and be there for auto workers in Ingersoll. The Conservative leader has previously downplayed Carney's ability to deal with Trump.
Prime Minister Carney is running his entire campaign on a false promise that he can control the president through magical, masterful negotiating techniques.
The Stellantis plant in Windsor has also hit pause. One auto worker job in this city impacts 6 others. At this restaurant, that's on the minds of staff.
Usually a pretty devout NDP voter. Unfortunately, at the federal level, it often feels like I need to vote strategically.
The next leader should definitely take a focus on Canadian, keeping jobs here, making sure that we're more self-reliant.
Tonight, Pierre Poilievre will hold a rally in Windsor, where auto plant shutdowns are the main concern. Mark Carney and Jagmeet Singh have visited the border city before, but are back in Ottawa now.
And down near south of the province, near Hollywood North, notable scenes were filmed in Nanaimo not too long ago for the 2nd season of The Last of Us, which will be premiering this Sunday. Andy Garland has our final story of the day.
The Last of Us, one of the most highly anticipated second seasons to a show on television, is set to premiere this Sunday.
And it's really exciting that part of it was filmed on Vancouver Island.
Almost a year ago, the production of The Last of Us came to Nanaimo and transformed the city's historic commercial street into a post-apocalyptic wasteland.
It didn't look like a normal day on Commercial Street.
Businesses on and around Commercial Street had to close their doors for around a week while filming took place and were compensated for it, including clothing store Lucid, whose owner took this photo looking outside their front door.
They kind of mopped dirty water on all of the windows to dull down the glare, as well as to give it that feeling like nobody had been here for 20 years cleaning windows.
I've got a presentation photo that was given to the city by the crew after the filming of the series.
Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie on the video game turned HBO blockbuster, was seen filming scenes on horseback in Nanaimo. Signed this photo thanking the mayor and city.
The city's going to have it forever. It'll be a wonderful reminder of a fascinating time in our old downtown.
Future dollars could come Nanaimo's way in the form of film tourism. Local experts referencing Ryan Reynolds' iconic Deadpool picture at Royal Roads University, saying people still flock to the iconic Greater Victoria location for their Hollywood North moment.
That shot has probably been recreated hundreds, if not thousands of times by visitors to Hatley Castle.
And the Harbour City's mayor and business community would welcome any Last of Us fans to come visit.
In these difficult times with the Mad King in the White House, it's even more important that we encourage tourism.
The hope is that folks will come down and check us out, that it's recognizable, that the word will get out, that this was one of the locations.
First episode of Season 2 premieres Sunday on Crave, and according to what the mayor has heard, Episode 4 is when Nanaimo's downtown will be featured on streaming's biggest stage. Andy Garland, CTV News, Nanaimo.
That'll be all from my final cast here on CFTK-TV. Thank you to the Northwest for being home for this past year for myself. And if you care, catch me in Regina on CTV News. Have a great weekend, everyone.